Hello, everyone. My name is Alan Dick, and on behalf of my fellow CommerceNext co-founders, Scott Silverman and Veronica Sontsev, I want to welcome you to today's webinar. Today is Wednesday, October 14th, 2020, and our topic this week is Holiday 2020 Gifting, Capturing Your Share of the $1 trillion market. Before we go any further, I'd like to welcome our guest speakers and panelists. Ken Kassar, he's the principal at Kassar Co. Strategy and Analytic Consultants. Sucharita Kodali, she's the VP and Principal Analyst at Forrester Research. Ryan No, Director of North America E-commerce at Brooks Running. Glenn Edelman, CMO at Wine Enthusiast. And John Gresh, Head of Retail Partnerships, Loop Commerce. I want to thank our sponsor and gifting partner, Loop Commerce. They've been kind enough to give each of our speakers today a nice gift, and they're going to share that gift with 5 lucky live attendees. I'll pick them at random at the end of this, so if you're lucky enough to win, which keep my fingers crossed for you, if you are, you'll be notified later on this afternoon. Let's take a look at the agenda here. We're going to talk about the upcoming events we've got here at CommerceNext, give you a couple of housekeeping notes so you get the most out of the webinar. Then we're going to have Ken Kassar come on. He's going to be talking about some research he's done relating to gifting in a pandemic. John Gresh will follow him with a brief discussion of Holiday 2020 gifting and solving some retail challenges. We'll then go to some audience polls, take your temperature. And then at the last half of this webinar will be a panel discussion and audience Q&A. Here's a programming reminder. Next week, our webinar is Holiday 2020 is coming to town. Is your checkout ready? You can go to bit.ly CNWeb22 to check that out. That's going to be run by CommerceNext co-founder Scott Silverman and is sponsored by our friends over at Locate. One other thing, we have a new page on our site, on our main CommerceNext.com site, upcoming events. This is where you're going to see what's coming up next, the past couple of webinars, and a complete archive of all the webinars we've done. It's a great resource. I definitely want to check that out. Some housekeeping notes. Don't worry about missing anything. We're recording this webinar. We'll make it available by tomorrow afternoon. And I just want to take a moment to show those of you that are new to this where things are on your screen. So if you take a look at the upper right-hand corner, you'll see three areas: Q&A, polls, and handouts. If you want to ask our panelists a question, which I strongly encourage you to do, it's just I'd much rather take audience questions, much rather get into what's interesting you. So please just ask a question. You can do that in the field below. We'll take a look at it. We'll publish it. If you see that we published a question from one of our audience members, you can upvote it. We're using that little upvote button that we've highlighted here. That tells us which questions you guys want us to focus on. So please ask the questions and feel free to upvote. We also have handouts available. Loop Commerce has provided a white paper, and we also have all the slide deck available. So as Ken's blasting through his presentation with all the charts and graphs, please just know that you don't have to take feverish notes. We have all that available as a download. And if you're listening to this on a replay, you can find all these documents just by clicking on the document icon at the bottom of the screen. We've highlighted that. And now, without further ado, let's actually get into the content here. This is Gifting in a Pandemic, a look at the numbers with Ken Kassar, the principal at Kassar Co. Strategy and Analytic Consultants. Ken, why don't you take it away?
Thank you, Alan. Happy to be here today. And within the next 10 or 11 minutes, I will try to sort of do a spin through what we are expecting to see this holiday season, and hopefully sort of frame up the discussion that will follow this. As is my habit, we will be heavy on data. And again, just to emphasize what Alan said, don't feel like you have to write everything down. Just try to sit back, take it in, knowing that you'll be able to get the slides after. The data that we'll talk to today comes from 2 different sources. The first is a merchant survey that we ran in the middle of September, where we had surveyed 63 merchants in order to understand how they were thinking about the upcoming holiday season with specific regards to shipping and gifting. We also ran a consumer survey with our partners over at BizRate Insights of 1,022 consumers. You can see the demos here. One thing to note is that the survey was a little bit heavy on women, but as we're talking about holidays and gifting, I don't think that that is necessarily a bad thing. As always, let's start with the consumer as we are digging into this. I think the most reasonable, the most logical place to start is to look at what holiday budgets look like. When we ask consumers about how their holiday 2020 budget is looking to compare relative to prior years, we see data that looks a bit like what we would ordinarily see with people intending to spend less. But that ratio, the 10x ratio between those planning to spend less and those planning to spend more, is telling us that it's going to, I think, be a relatively conservative season. This is you often hear that consumers plan to cut back on spending. I think I'm a little bit more likely to believe that this year we have much more attention to discretionary budgets, and consumers also have a little bit more time. Unfortunately, it looks like we're all going to see fewer loved ones this year. 47% of those that we surveyed said that they expected that they were going to see fewer people this year. And of course, there's a high correlation between seeing people and gifting occasions. And I think we're going to see fewer obligatory gifts and fewer recipients for gifts this year. And consumers are also telling us that they plan to think differently about the gifts that they buy this year. It's interesting to me that in total, 43% of the consumers that we had surveyed said that they were thinking differently. 5% planned to buy more gifts that were more fun, 18% more thoughtful, 20% more practical. And again, I am often skeptical of these sorts of things. I think with all of the best intents, we run out of time. However, because there is more time this year, I actually believe that consumers are going to be a lot more thoughtful than in the past. They're going to spend more time trying to find just the right gift. This may be incredibly obvious, but online is going to be big this year. Not surprisingly, when we ask consumers about what they expected would be different, the most prominent answer was that they plan to spend a larger portion of their holiday budget online. And when we look at the forecasts that are out there thus far, Sucharita, I've not seen a Forrester forecast, but with Deloitte and eMarketer, they are both anticipating holiday spend overall will be up about 1% to 1.5%. Deloitte is expecting more conservative e-commerce growth of 20 to 25% compared with 36% from eMarketer. I did talk to Andrew Lipsman over at eMarketer, and he had said that their growth rate, a big component of that growth, is significant growth in grocery, where we've seen such significant growth in such a big category that it's lifting the overall category. And so, if you are an apparel or electronics retailer in a category that's a bit more mature online, you probably shouldn't expect to see growth along those lines. But I would certainly expect to see growth in excess that you've seen over the past couple of years. One other thing that's really interesting in the eMarketer forecast is that they explicitly call out the drop in non-e-commerce growth. So really, there's a 5-point kind of swing that's going on in the macro retail economy with that shift. In this time of dramatic change, it's nice to see that some things don't change. And when we ask consumers about the promotions that most appeal to them, free shipping is at the top of the list. This has been the case in the 20-something years that I've been tracking e-commerce, and I don't expect it's ever going to change. Next on the list, though, discounts on items that they most want is going. I worry a little bit about disappointment on the part of consumers. I think we're all hearing a lot about much less aggressive markdown strategies from retailers. Third on the list, expedited shipping at 26%. I want everybody to pay attention to that delta between, or the difference between, free shipping and expedited shipping. And I think consumers are telling us pretty clearly that the free part of fast free, the free part is a lot more important to them. And I think that that's an important lever that retailers ought to be aware of. When we ask consumers about what they're worried about this holiday season, they are worried about the right things. They obviously affected by COVID. They understand that items may be out of stock and unavailable, that packages may not arrive on time. And it seems pretty clear that it seems pretty clear that this represents an opportunity for merchants that need to try to smooth demand out to kind of capitalize upon this well-founded concern of consumers in order to get them to buy earlier and outside of those peak times. One other point on this slide, 25% of consumers are worried about challenges associated with returns. This is a very valid concern. 25%, I think there's probably more concern about this than we've seen in the past, with the increase in online volume and a reluctance to go into stores. Now we'll change gears to the retailer picture. And as we think about the retailer this year, this is probably the way we really ought to think about it, as opposed to the mall. And so clearly, when we asked merchants about the consumer related concerns, we also asked about logistics related concerns that we'll come back to. But we asked about consumer related returns. The biggest worry on the part of merchants is that consumers are expecting delivery that is fast and free. At the same time, they know they're going to get hit with shipper surcharges. And 63% cited that. Next on the list is an interesting one that I haven't heard as much conversation about as I might expect, and that is higher marketing costs, because so many retailers understand that online is going to be competitive territory. I think that with so much supply and a much higher level of demand, we're going to find that folks like Facebook and Google are going to perform well on the advertising side, and it's going to be a challenge for advertisers. Ordinarily, this might cause retailers to shift ad spend toward offline media like television. The problem, though, is that linear television has been subsumed by streaming, where there aren't ad opportunities, and so marketing is going to be tough this year unless you've got a more aggressive budget. Moving over to the logistics concerns, the top two concerns come back to third-party shippers. Retailers worry that deliveries may be capped during peak demand periods. They worry that they may get hit with surcharges that are going to strain profitability. They worry about that much more than they worry about their own ability to fulfill out of their fulfillment centers, although that is a concern. One other thing I do want to point out, relatively low on this list, is stores worrying about their ability to keep up with the volume of online orders from stores. And I do worry that stores are going to be heavily affected this year. The relatively low percent we see here is, I think, largely a component of the composition of our merchant survey, where we're a little heavy on online only retailers. The concerns that retailers are sharing about shipper surcharges and caps and such are certainly well founded. During peak COVID and holiday, in some ways, may look like peak COVID for retailers. We've seen ample evidence that these are things that are certainly going to happen. When we asked retailers about their free shipping approach for this year, 8% only say that they will not be offering free shipping promotions. The rest will. Retailers understand the importance of free shipping. When we look at the times, the minimum order sizes associated with those free shipping offers, we're seeing largely the status quo. The retailers that we had surveyed are largely planning on offering free shipping with similar minimum order sizes as the prior year, and then we've got roughly as many that plan to increase minimum order sizes as plan to decrease minimum order sizes. Looking at how retailers are thinking about the last day that non-expedited deliveries can go out, 77% plan to end expedited or non-expedited deliveries between December 14th and 21st. This is roughly on par, I believe, with what we've seen in years past, and so there is, there may be some risk, depending upon what happens on the shipping situation. Moving back to a consumer survey data point, which I think is a relatively important one, when we ask consumers about when they plan to begin their holiday shopping, when they plan to do, not begin, but do their holiday shopping this year, the majority, 58%, say that they don't expect to dramatically change the timing of their holiday shopping. That's a little bit of a concern. But we do see 34% saying that they plan to do it earlier. Again, in the past, I see data like this, and I'd be inclined to say, sure, you will. But this year, I think with more time and with the consumers attuned to some of the challenges of the channel, we may actually see that. This is a really important lever that retailers need to pull. When we ask merchants about the promotions, how they're planning to win over online gift buyers this season, this was, I think, really good news. Retailers are looking to invest in content to support and inspire gift givers more than in the past. And I think that, I think that we do have consumers that are, again, I think we're going to have fewer recipients. I think we're going to have more thoughtful gifts, more willingness to spend on those thoughtful gifts. And retailers, I think, understand that they have a role in helping consumers with that. Number 2 on the list, more aggressive price promotions on selected items. That's going to be an interesting one. I believe that we're going to overall see less price promotion as retailers look to avoid spikes, worry about finite supply of in-demand items, and I'm hearing that fairly consistently with retailers that I speak with. And so, just a couple of quick closing thoughts. Retailers' fulfillment systems, both in store or in store as well as in fulfillment centers, are going to be burdened like never before. There's a really important opportunity or need, I think, for brick and mortar retailers to make sure that their staff are trained early and cross-trained in order to be able to deal with some things that are new to them. Their consumers in the past have had a brick and mortar release valve. If they didn't get around to doing what they intended to do in terms of their online shopping, they've been able to, the weekend before, go to brick and mortar stores. There will be some of that, but less of that this year. Consumers do want to be more thoughtful, and again, merchants really need to go out of their way to help with that, whether it's functionality on the website, whether it's with email promotions. Last minute gifting is going to be a challenge. Consumers, I think, may not be completely prepared for it, and then finally, I do worry about this return apocalypse or return-amageddon that we're going to be looking at in late December, and how retailers are going to worry about it. To the extent possible, retailers really ought to start thinking about exactly how they're going to deal with probably unprecedented return demand. With that, I will hand it back to you, Alan.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate you taking the time to come on and join us today and go through all of that. That was Ken Kassar. Thank you again. Just before I hand this over to John Gresh, I just want to say I think we have a couple of records in our Q&A so far. Sean Alamas, you probably have the earliest question ever submitted at 3 minutes into the webinar. Good for you. We will definitely get to your question. And we had another more of a comment from Daria Zavialova from Kiev, Ukraine. And I think she wins the award for the longest distance participant. So hello to you, Daria. Thank you for joining us today. All right, so let's keep moving along. I want to bring on John Gresh. He's the head of retail partnerships at Loop Commerce. He's our sponsor for the day. John, why don't you take it away?
Thanks, Alan. And Ken, appreciate the data dump and the interpretation. I think everyone probably found that useful. Scott, Alan, and Veronica, of course, for putting this together, and then Sucharita, Ryan, and Glenn for participating on the panel. We've got a really smart and well-oiled machine here of people in the industry, and so hopefully everyone's enjoying the content, and especially will enjoy the up-and-coming Q&A. Towards that, I'm going to try to move through this really quickly. This is not a pitch for our service. This is more just sort of thoughts and observations we've had this year, with the hopes of helping people get in the mindset of what might be a little bit different this year than next year, and potentially plan for some opportunities that they can take advantage of. So from a starting point, I think everyone needs to agree with the fact that fundamentally consumer behavior has changed. And it's done that in a lot of ways and has been doing that for a number of years. This year in particular, accelerated a number of these things, grew adoption across demographics we probably wouldn't have seen for several years had it been a normal 2020. Obviously increased our business online in general, and actually created this almost acceptance of digital experiences in some cases, replacing what we used to value as physical ones. And so consumer behavior has changed, and it has adjusted, and it did it in a lot of ways very quickly in the last 4 or 5 months. And that is going to change how we approach some things as we go into holiday. We believe, and anyone who knows us as Loop Commerce. If you don't know us as Loop Commerce, you may know us as Gift Now. We power a digital gifting platform that will holistically look after ways that consumers can send gifts to each other through retail experiences on retailer sites that we work with, folks like a Uniqlo or Kate Spade or Coach, American Eagle, et cetera. And so we've seen this need for gifting to become more of a strategic pillar. It's been left behind in this digital revolution. So many things have changed. Gifting has more or less stayed the same. And I think the most interesting innovation we've probably seen in the last decade was moving from plastic gift cards to digital gift cards, and maybe a decade and a half ago. That's what we would call innovation in the category. We've also seen these functions sort of disparate within each other. And so kind of imagine CRM before there was CRM, right? And you had data in one place and you have analytics in another, and it was really hard to sort of stitch all these things together. And so we look at it kind of ground up and also top down to think about how gifting can become strategic to the enterprise in a bunch of different ways, obviously in the outward facing function of commerce. And so accepting this idea that things have fundamentally changed, we also need to accept the idea that shopping for yourself is actually different than shopping for others. And it presents different problems. And these problems are often ignored or maybe overlooked when retailers are planning for holidays, especially December holidays, but even the life events that happen throughout the year and or other smaller holidays that might matter to them, like a Mother's Day, Father's Day. And so the considerations for the consumer on the path to purchase are actually different, right? It's things like what happens when someone has to return, or gosh, I'd love to buy this item, but it requires me to choose things like a size or a color, where that's a very personal choice. Will they get it on time, right? You can compromise if you're shipping it to yourself. 2 days, 3 days, what's the difference? 3 days actually misses the birthday. And so these are all considerations that come into play when you're shopping for somebody else. We call this the gift experience gap. And it's not small, right? It's hundreds of billions of dollars. In fact, we would say it's somewhere around $1 trillion when you add up all of the places and all of the moments that people gift, because it's not just consumer to consumer, it's B2B, it's employee, it's customer to, or company to employee, it's to customer, etc. And so there's a variety of ways that the gifting economy is fueling commerce in our business. And a lot of it is actually pretty hard to access and pretty hard to see for retailers. So it's a big deal. And it's something that we wake up every day obsessing about, helping our retailers win in this category. And there's obvious things that will cascade out of that when you're executing this in the right way. Mother's Day was a great representation of what was a little bit different this year than last. And so I was going to talk a little bit about those numbers and what we saw sort of holistically in the market. I don't think people realized that they were going to be in a situation where they may not see mom this Mother's Day. And so the last minute became really important, right? The ability to provide thoughtful, engaging, and expressive experiences through digital platforms, digital experiences, became really important. And it became really important, especially in that last minute moment. And so while we always see a rise around Mother's Day, Father's Day, Valentine's Day, etc., this year we saw it actually spike up quite a bit. And of course, we would attribute that to the social distancing and people's inability to travel like they were able to in the past. Even more interesting, gifting over-indexed over site sale increase itself, right? And so this particular case example, the site traffic was up 42%. So you'd expect some growth on the commerce side in general. We see, as we know in the industry, that we're over-indexing on sales versus traffic volume. People are just buying more, right, with less visits, or at least that's generally the case. So sales might be up 150%, orders up 200. Gifting itself was up even higher than that. And so pound for pound, it was generating more revenue for the business. And it was, of course, this is wrapped around Mother's Day, but the point is that it was happening at a higher rate than even the growth we experienced in e-commerce in general. Sometimes we'll call gifting as a category homeless. And the reason why is because it doesn't have a head merchant. It doesn't have somebody who's responsible for it on an evergreen basis, who's continuously looking at how do they do this better every day. A lot of retailers don't even see themselves as a gifting destination. But you have to remember that if somebody wants to buy a product there themselves, there's somebody out there who knows that they want to buy it and therefore would make it a good gift, right? Even the most random things that you never thought were good gifts are actually great gifts if you provide the capability to do it in an efficient way. And so with this sort of homeless paradigm, often it will come together for holiday, a group is created, they execute, they do as good as they can with what they have and what they know, and then that disappears in January, maybe springs up again in February, maybe in May, depending on which holidays matter most. But the point is that there isn't this sort of long, thoughtful plan around how am I going to win in something like gifting, which turns out, again, is $1 trillion business. And so we brought to market this concept of gift experience management. And the idea is to create this more digital version of what used to be a very physical interaction between two people. It means that we can do things in seconds. Once you decouple shipping from delivery being the experience, the emotional event that happens between two people, then it can be done instantly without the pressure of having to put the package in the driveway, right? It also means you don't need to ship expedited, which means you don't have to subsidize if you're in the business of doing that. It also means that people don't need to physically touch and then return the product if they don't like it, which our system tells us that happens 45% of the time. And so there's a lot of opportunity wrapped up in creating executions, marketing programs, messages, stories that will allow your customers to realize that these are capabilities that you now offer. And it's not just about the product, but it's about the entire experience. And so we're obviously aggressively working with our retailers this time of year. I'm going to save you kind of reading the bullets on this, but it's really all about helping prep for, take advantage of, and understand where those sweet spots are to really go after a gifting audience. One more thing worth mentioning, which we see in our data and we see in our consumer data when we're looking for feedback and surveying, is this contactless gifting need. And it's not just on the shopping side, but it's on the return side. People have a heightened concern for making somebody go through a return process. And so this all plays really well into a digital product gifting experience. So why do people partner with us? It's really simple. Happier customers. Excuse me. The brand sitting at the intersection of this engagement between two people, which is a non-commercial event. You have to remember that gifting is not about buying the gift. It's about giving the gift. And so this is a really, really key opportunity to make a connection and be part of that connection between two people. There's no other transaction on the planet that's going to happen. It gives you insights into both the buyer and the sender. So now we know who shopped for who. We know that person. We can market to that person. We also know who received it. We know what they did with it. That becomes another marketing opportunity, and you get 2 customers for every transaction. You can be open on Christmas morning and not have to worry about delivering products that afternoon. And so that advantage of shipping cutoffs, especially in 2020, when these are going to be pulled back, giving you plenty of runway to be able to continue to serve the customer's demand, which we've seen over the last 5 to 7 years, is being pent up at that last minute moment. And lastly, the ability for you to understand the business and what it means and how to drive it and who the shoppers are that are shopping for others. Because guess what? They're generally not the same shoppers you're targeting to shop the brand itself. So your gift shopper is not usually the same demo as the one who's buying and who's sitting in your house file right now. And so that targeting exercise of who buys for my core customer is something that we're able to bring to bear, obviously, through all the data that we use on the platform. So just a quick snapshot on the things we're thinking about, the way that we're thinking about them, and the places that we can help retailers win in the last minute and win in this holiday shopping season. Alan, I'm going to kick it back to you.
All right, John, thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right, before we get to our panel, we're going to take a look at our polls here. I want to start engaging our audience. Before we go to the polls, though, just want to remind everybody that the polls can be found in the polls section, surprisingly enough, and all the results can be seen if you hit the closed button. You can see how everyone answered. And with that in mind, with anyone who is looking at this in the recording, you can always find all the handouts and poll results by clicking on the document icon highlighted below. Okay, our first question. How does your company view e-commerce gifting? Do you view it as a strategic or top priority, a tactical or secondary priority? We're just starting to develop a gifting program. Or how about we know it's important but haven't addressed it, or we don't recognize it as a priority for our business? All right, so how does your company view e-commerce gifting? You can view it as a strategic or top priority, a tactical or secondary priority. We're just starting to develop a gifting program. We know it's important, but we just haven't addressed it, or we don't recognize it as a priority. All right, now the results are coming in. And it is definitely a strategic or top priority. About half of you are answering that. That's nice to see. I'm going to close this poll now because we have a bunch to get through and I really want to get to our speakers. So I'm going to close that poll. Move on to our second question. Question number 2. What types of gifting options do you offer on your e-commerce site? Now you can click all that apply. Gift registry, gifting page, gift suggestions, gifting software service and product pages, concierge service, buy online, pick up in store, other. If it's really interesting, drop us a note in the Q&A so we can discuss it. Or none. Looking at those coming in now, looks like gifting page and gifting suggestions are definitely the top 2. Bopis coming up for a solid 3rd. Yeah, so it looks like a 1/3 of you are doing gift suggestions, a 1/3 of you are doing a gifting page. All right, I'm going to close that one. When will you stop non-expedited shipping this year? When will you stop non-expedited shipping this year? On or before December 13th, between the 14th and 17th, between the 18th and 21st, or after December 21st? All right, going to close this poll. And now, got one last one for you. This is your mobile checkout a single page? This is for our next webinar next week, the one that Scott is doing. Is your mobile checkout a single page? You have two big answers there, yes or no. Interesting. Looks like there is a third of you saying yes and 2/3 saying no. Very good. Cool. We're going to close that poll. And we are going to move right along. All right. At this point, I want to welcome all of our speakers to come on board. Sucharita, Ryan, Glenn, John, you guys could turn on your cameras and microphones. Hey, Sucharita, good to see you. John, Ryan, where's our man, Glenn? All right, well, while Glenn's getting on, let's do this. Ryan, can you turn on your microphone and introduce yourself?
Hi, can you hear me, Alan? Awesome. Hey, everyone. My name's Ryan O. I lead our North America e-commerce business here at Brooks Running. And little introduction of Brooks. We're all about the run. That's what we do, and that's what we believe in. We specifically and purposely only focus on making the run better for all. Our purpose is to really inspire everyone to run their path to a better self, where we strongly do believe that running is a limitless source of energy, a positive energy that can really transform a day, a life, and even the world. So a bit about Brooks. And our global headquarters is in Seattle, Washington.
Very good. Thank you, Ryan. Glenn, I'll let you pick it up. And then Sucharita, I'll turn to you.
Great. Thanks for having me, everyone. My name is Glenn Edelman. I am CMO of Wine Enthusiast, where I'm responsible for our direct-to-consumer business as well as our marketplaces. So it's been a whirlwind day and a half with Amazon Prime Day going on. But if you're not familiar with the commerce arm of Wine Enthusiast, to put it easily, we sell everything but the wine. So everything around the wine lifestyle, from glassware, decanters, and corkscrews up to like large wine storage cabinets. And we're about to hit obviously the heavy season. Why I'm here is the gifting season for us.
Perfect. Thank you, Glenn. Yep. Sucharita, the person who probably does not need the introduction, but I will let you do it anyway.
That said Prime Schmime. I thought it was about the Just Crocs drop that, was causing everybody. Anyway, I'm Sucharita Kadali. I'm a retail analyst at Forrester and longtime friend of Alan, Scott, and Veronica. So nice to be here with everybody.
All right, guys, thank you for joining us. All right, we have a lot of questions to go through here. So I want to start with Ryan. Can you tell me what your general theory is about your holiday 2020 consumer? Kind of like, what are you seeing with them? Are they spending more or less? How are they acting differently? And then Glenn, I'll ask you the same question.
Yeah, sure. So we're, during this global pandemic, we're actually, I'm blessed and Brooks is blessed that running has become an outlet for people to handle all these challenges during this time. So running demand in general is hot right now, and our brand specifically is hotter than ever. And so we think that this momentum is going to continue going into the holiday. We're already seeing increase in sessions and conversions just now, and we think that spiked because of the beginning of Amazon Prime Day. But we think that going into the holiday, people are going to have to replace their running shoes, not only for themselves, but also for their loved ones and friends.
Glenn?
Yeah, well, when people aren't running or riding their Pelotons during this pandemic, they're drinking, and we're noticing that. And they're also investing in their homes. We hear it a lot. If people aren't unable to travel or spend money on travel, they're investing in their homes or buying new homes that are in our demographic second homes. So we're at that intersection of booze and wine and home decor. So we're seeing also that sort of pandemic bump, and we as well are very very optimistic about the holiday season, but with more business comes more problems, as we talked about more. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. Sucharita, let me come over to you for a second. You saw Ken's research. You kind of have certainly have the researcher's perspective. What are your initial thoughts here on consumer behavior for 2020? And this is going to tie in, by the way, to a question that Shauna Lamas has written us. Thank you, Shauna, for that. She's asking, what are the biggest changes in consumer holiday shopping behavior predicted for 2020 versus previous years? So I'll let you tee up both of those, the changes in consumer behavior, and what do you think about what you've heard so far?
Yeah, we we will be releasing a holiday forecast as well. We had a preliminary set of numbers that I don't think have been shared broadly, but at a high level, they're pretty consistent with the numbers that Ken shared earlier. We're actually thinking that offline is going to be flat compared to last year, and there'll be a slight outpacing of year-to-date e-commerce for November and December. Our holiday forecast for Forrester is just the months of November and December. Mm-hmm. What's different this year? Usually every year you have about 10 to 15% of e-com happening in the holiday, the consumer completing their holiday shopping in the month of October. So that number may be slightly higher now because you have the sales being pushed slightly forward, but as Ken had pointed out, a lot of people are they're not necessarily thinking about the holiday shopping season yet. The lack of Black Friday sales will be a big difference from years past. You just can't do a Black Friday sale in the way that you could have done before. So that naturally pushes more consumers online and changes some of the dynamics of that shopping, kind of weekend in particular. And we don't know what's really going to happen with the carriers. I mean, every year you have a year-over-year increase in e-commerce in Q4. I mean, that's going to happen no matter what. And then you have this push away from bricks and mortar driving people to e-commerce. And the question, I think, is, well, if people have delays in their transactions or they're hearing about delays in their transactions or items are out of stock, do they, there are likely several sets of outcomes, right? Some percent of those people will just go to other stores and see what they can find. Some percent of people will just abandon the transaction and leave and not purchase, and in which case, that's money that, as an industry, we will have left on the table. And then others will, order anyway and, vent their frustration on Twitter and Facebook. And, that will be a significant, driver of everybody panicking and being like, oh my gosh, the industry is couldn't get it together. But net, it's probably just going to be flat compared to last year. Mm-hmm. And probably still going to see companies like Home Depot and Lowe's doing really well in Q4. But unfortunately, the mall merchants and, other traditional retailers that have, like the jewelers that would have traditionally done really well in Q4, probably, challenged in a way that you've seen year to date.
All right, I see John's struggling a bit with his camera feed, so I will ask Ryan and Glenn a quick question. I thought it was interesting, Sucharita, what you said about Black Friday. Honestly, it didn't even occur to me. I just kind of assumed that Black Friday is just Black Friday, just Black Friday, but apparently it isn't going to be. Ryan, Glenn, do you have any thoughts on that? Ryan, I'll start with you. How are you approaching Black Friday and Cyber Monday?
Yeah, so similar to with the trends that we're seeing as well, it makes sense that our stores are going to have to kind of manage crowds just because the focus on safety and social distancing and everything. So our customers are still going to want their running product, running shoes, apparel, and run bras. So they're going to probably go to e-commerce sites to satisfy their needs. And at Brooks, our belief is that we don't really care where runners shop. They can shop at stores on retailer.com or even brooksrunning.com. But at the end of the day, we just want them to have a consistent and seamless experience and obviously buy Brooks products. So we're going to want to make sure that we have a seamless, frictionless experience, not only on brookslearning.com, but with our retail partners as well.
Glenn?
Well, we're similar in that vein to, we do not have a brick and mortar strategy. We've never had brick and mortar stores, although we were looking into them very, very strongly and may still consider them. But same vein, we people can shop with us however they want on our website, or our call center is a big sort of channel for us as well. Because you got to think, when we're selling, high-end wine storage cabinets, people are more of a, it's not an impulse purchase, more of a considered purchase. So they're going to need some consultation, and we pride ourselves in call in and spend as much time, because that average order on the phone is way larger than it is on the website as well.
Cool. John, you're back. I got to turn that microphone on.
I'm back.
Hey, you're back. So what are your thoughts on what you've been hearing here? I mean, Loop has got the kind of the 40,000 foot view, given the fact you've got a number of retail clients. Is kind of what you're hearing from Ryan, Glenn, and Sucharita falling in line with what you're seeing? And then I've got a follow-up question from the audience for you.
Yeah, it's consistent with what we're seeing, hearing, and just observing in the data itself. I think there's just some interesting sort of dots that you can connect on where there might be ways to potentially even improve how you're thinking about going into this holiday, right? One of the questions, the poll questions you asked was, what are the things that you have in place to serve a gift shopping experience? And I think you said Boppus came in almost at number 3.
Yeah, right?
Right?
It was surprising. Mm-hmm.
So it's in the retail mix, it's something you think about. I can serve last minute because I've got this great retail footprint and things. But reality is that you're never going to say, hey, Alan, I bought you this great jacket from fill in the blank retailer. Why don't you go pick it up? Because you're there and I'm here and so on, right? And then tie that to 47% of people think they're going to see less people physically this year. And I guess where I'm going with it is, I think that there's going to be a much higher penetration of e-commerce relative to total sales. And it's going to come in ways that we necessarily didn't think about before.
All right, cool, thanks. So Dave Belatsky, thank you for asking a question. He's asking, and this is going to be geared more to you, John, although anyone else can jump in. Are there insights as to what you're seeing in the corporate gift market growth rate this year? I know on the call when we were all chatting, we were talking about how there's going to be a shift in that because the lack of in-person events is going to throw money into that corporate pool, or could at least increase it. John, you got any thoughts on that?
So it's a business that we're in, and we do that as a way to extend our retailer reach right into pockets of demand that they otherwise wouldn't necessarily have access to, because they're not at the table for a lot of that corporate gifting revenue. And we're talking hundreds of billions. It's not a small market. And when everyone's competing for the sliver, call it sliver, huge sliver of consumer demand, there is this channel that's an opportunity. And so we've seen it grow at a rate we did not expect. Like we talked about pre this webinar. There's a lot of corporate money right now not being spent every single day when people are in the building and you're feeding them lunch and you're doing these great activities and calling in these massage people and so on. That's not happening. And this budget is there. And at the same time, they need an even better way, a more engaging way to keep employee engagement high and employee happiness high and humanizing the business again. And so I'm seeing that happen in corporate gifting executions. And probably the most fascinating part of it is obviously the volume of it, but then the amount of money per person that they're willing to spend is different than it was in the past. And so it speaks to all of the things that I just shared.
Well, I think we've set the stage here. I think we kind of have an idea of where we are right now. And I guess what I'd like to ask Ryan and Glenn is more the kind of the tactics, the strategies you guys are pursuing. We had a decent discussion, I had a good discussion on that during the prep call, and I want you guys to be able to kind of fill in those blanks there. So I guess the question would be, what are you doing to maximize holiday sales, and how does gifting fit into that? Ryan, I'll let you go first.
All right. Yeah, sure. So, it comes down to preparation, and we prepare for holidays starting in February of this year. And it's about preparation, making sure we have the right inventory, making sure that we have a great checkout experience, making sure that our distribution centers have a plan in place from a resource perspective, as well as our customer service team. And then shipping is very important. The whole fulfillment process to think about. Customers want their product on time, and we're competing with the Amazon out there, where they've created this 2-day shipping experience. So we gotta make sure that we are competitive there. In regards to gifting and stuff, our goal in the holiday campaign is to really encourage runners to get out the door by making them by inspiring them to run out there and continue to be active. And we got to help them with finding the right gear for them. So we have gift guides that are available on our site. We're even doing like an A/B test where we're comparing one gift guide that's focused on pricing. So like gifts greater than $150, gifts that are over $100 and so forth. But then we also are testing another type of gift guide for the first time, where it's based off runner persona. So like a gift guide would be separated based off of winter running gear for the Blizzard Braver, or Run Invisible collection for the Rudolph runner. So it's like more of like a persona that you're looking for to see which one gets more engagement. We also have a shoe finder, bra finder. We have e-gift cards. We have filters and sorting, make sure that people can find bestsellers, etc. We even have like an Ask a Guru program where you can text message a number, and then we have a team of runners that will help them find the right product for them if they have any questions, to have that one-on-one personalized service.
Mm-hmm. Glenn?
Yeah, I'd say our strategy this year, different than prior years, is the old adage, the tongue-in-cheek adage about voting: do it early and do it often. And we're recommending that to our consumers. And like Ken said in his like, a lot of what he said is spot on with our strategy for this year. We're going to recommend, a week ago, we sent an email out to our customers using that exact phrase: get ready for a holiday like no other. And being real upfront with them and saying, we highly recommend that you order early for holidays this year. Because we're going to do our darndest to get it out the door, but I can't guarantee once it hits that, when it hits the FedEx network, how, that capping shipping is scary to me. That they're capping shipping of retailers is really, really scary to us. So once it gets out there, we can't guarantee Christmas delivery this year. And with the growth in online demand, we're seeing, we hope we ordered a lot. We hope we ordered enough. And the forecasting, who can forecast 100% growth in online traffic year on year? Who would do that? I'd be crazy if I went back to my executive team with that. And then we have a large amount of personalization going on in our product. So who knows what can happen in the coming months with COVID restrictions, as well as might delay. So it might delay just sort of engraving time. So like I said, it's shop early and often. Changing consumer behavior is going to be very, very difficult. But us as an industry, see Amazon starting it already. And I've seen a lot of other retailers. We can, basically band together and educate consumers to shop early and often, because here are the risks of not getting, your gifts delivered in time. And the question about what are some content we're doing, what we've done in the past, we found our video gift guides, short sort of snippets or vignettes of top products, have been helpful for people, not just showing them a list of products where they wonder where it came from. And our most popular every year, far and away, are staff picks. We grab some of, half a dozen or a dozen of our employees, put them on video. This year we'll be doing it by Zoom video. And they pick what their favorite items, from Wine Enthusiast are. And those are far and away our most popular gift guides every year.
Yeah, that's interesting. Real interesting. Sucharita, let me bring you back in. So what are you seeing out there in terms of promotions or ideas that you think retailers are getting right? Anything coming to mind?
So Glenn's advice is fantastic, and everybody should think about that. That's probably one of the easiest things that everybody do, right? I mean, it's just everybody's on video now, and kind of just showcase kind of the people's favorite things. I mean, a lot of the promotions are pretty standard, and I mean, it's anytime there's a great discount, people are going to respond to that. The only variant that I would say that there's probably some white space are, maybe some concepts that we could steal from abroad. Like every New Year's Day in Japan, they have their Fukubukuro sales, and they're basically the mystery bags, that kind of they promote. It's like a $100 transaction, but you're going to get $200 worth of merchandise for sure, and people love it. And I mean, it's like their Black Friday, and it actually becomes a cultural event where people trade things and they unbag and have kind of their videos showcasing what they got. And it seems like we're in a good position in the United States to adopt something more like that. I mean, I've seen a few companies like Michaels and others here and there do that, but it's never taken off. So maybe there's something of that nature to kind of shake things up and do something that hasn't really been done before. But I do think that retailers are going to have to rethink kind of if the doorbuster from Black Friday is gone, what are you going to do to replace that? And do you have some kind of online drop to supplement the sales that you may lose there?
That is a perfect segue into what I wanted to do here for the last couple of minutes. I mean, gifting is, I think, we just kind of all get in this mindset, or largely get in the mindset of gifting is holiday, right? That's it. But I think as John pointed out, there's a lot of other gifting going on out there, and it's going on all year round. And I remember, Glenn, when we were doing our speaker prep, we were talking about just that very dilemma. If you're just selling and selling and selling, what happens on January 1st, January 2nd, what is left there? So let's talk about, Glenn, some of the challenges that you think might be coming up, or think that retailers should be considering as we go through the holiday and beyond, particularly when it comes to like inventory considerations and promotional considerations. There is life after New Year's.
Yeah. Well, we have a saying, or I have a saying, every day somebody's birthday, so there's always a gift to give somebody. But like we were talking about at the prep, who could have forecasted this growth? We're lucky, knock on wood every day. But what happens if we have such a tremendous holiday season? What do we have available to sell on January 1st? We sell things on pre-order and back order, but what do we have to sell and ship to people? And that'll be a challenge, and that's for the inventory people. But it just sort of, and what is the world like on January 1st? After elections, after COVID, it's not going away. There's no difference between December 31st and January 1st. Most people are going to be in this same, and it's just going to be a heck of a lot colder for most of the U.S.
Yep. Ryan, I'm going to come to you, and John, I'm going to give you the final word. Ryan, what are your thoughts on this? For you, there must be life after.
Yeah. So, it's all about runner insights and providing the best runner experience and really understanding our customer, which is the runner. So we focus our seasonal campaigns and gifting around special runner holidays, whether that's St. Patrick's Day or the Turkey Trot, or back to school. Those are times where we know that runners are in that shopping mode and looking for new products. So that's kind of, it's always backed by runner insights.
All right. We are very close to the top of the hour. John, I'm going to give you the last word. What would you like everyone to know about the post-holiday gift giving? I think in your parlance, you're seeing it now as a kind of a mandate, a strategic mandate versus just a tactical thing. And I think the audience is generally agreeing with you on this. So John, I'll let you take us home.
Well, it's Glenn said every day is somebody's birthday. Actually, every day is 850,000 people's birthday. and that's a lot of demand on a daily basis. That means there's probably 3 million transactions happening out there in service of birthday gifts that are actually really hard to spot, and they're really hard to know how to attack those. And so I think you keep your foot on the gas in terms of accelerating your gifting business. You think about what it means to the merchant organization and from a category level. You think about gift guides like Ryan was talking about. It's not about size, color. It's not the hard facets that you might introduce to someone who knows a lot about running, because the person buying for them maybe doesn't know anything about running. They just know that they're a running fanatic, and that they would love to show that they want to celebrate that with them, right? And so same thing with marketing. It doesn't mean that a woman's accessory business has no business advertising on ESPN, because actually that's where people might be that are buying gifts, and they're probably late because they're males, and they're going to pay more because they're late. And so there's a bunch of nuances to think about to how to capitalize on the business. This is what we think about every day. And I think the more we see people kind of bring themselves into a place that they can begin to execute on it, the business grows kind of by itself. So.
All right. Well, I'll leave that to be the last word. I just want to wrap up here. I want to thank our speakers, Ken Kassar from Kassar Co-Strategy and Analytic Consultants, John Gretsch from Loop Commerce, Sucharita Kodali from Forrester Research, Ryan No from Brooks Running, and Glenn Edelman from the Wine Enthusiast. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate you joining us today. Just a reminder, a programming note, next week, Holiday 2020 is coming to town. Is your checkout ready? Scott Silverman has the answer on how to make it so. Join him next week. You can see, you can register at bit.ly/CNWeb22. And I'll end with this. Thanks so much to Loop Commerce for sponsoring today's webinar. Don't forget, you can download the slides in the Loop Commerce white paper by clicking on the handouts section on the right of your screen. And finally, thanks to all of you, our audience, for taking the time to join us today. We appreciate your questions, your interest, and support. I'm Alan Dick, and on behalf of my fellow co-founders, Scott Silverman and Veronica Sonsev, I want to wish you all the best for a healthy and prosperous holiday season. Stay safe, and we'll see you all next week. Take care.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.